Our top story on Newsday, opposition leader Tony Abbott has rejected suggestions the government's asylum seeker policy is sending a stronger message to people smugglers. The coalition has announced plans to build a tent city on Nauru with a capacity of 2,000 people and no guarantee they'll be settled in Australia. Let's go to Canberra now. Sky News political reporter David Lipson is with us. And David, take us through just how different the coalition's plan is to Kevin Rudd's PNG agreement.
Oh, g'day, Selena. There are quite a few similarities. First and foremost, that asylum seekers that try to come to Australia by boat will instead be sent to be processed offshore. The coalition's plan involves Nauru primarily, while the government's plan involves PNG, Manus Island primarily. Both plans involve a whole lot of tents being set up in the short term to house these asylum seekers. Tony Abbott's plan, initially he has talked about a capacity of 2,000, but then he says that would be ramped up potentially to 5,000, remembering that there are only about 9,000 or so people on Nauru in total, so that would be, you would imagine, a significant strain on the capacity of that island as well. But Tony Abbott says that his plan would be implemented cheaper and faster than the government's plan for Manus Island. So a few similarities there, but the Immigration Minister says that there are some key differences and that the coalition has made some dire errors when it comes to its policy. Firstly, by putting a capacity, or by naming a capacity of 2,000 people initially. Tony Burke says that with 1,000 asylum seekers coming every week at the moment, it wouldn't take long for the people smugglers to blow that out of the water. And secondly, Tony Burke says that the coalition has shifted its language when it comes to asylum seekers by saying that there's no guarantee that asylum seekers would be settled in Australia, whereas the government has a slightly harder piece of rhetoric by saying no one full stop will come and be resettled in Australia or settled in Australia. Tony Burke said that he didn't want to get political or didn't want to take a political angle on everything when it comes to the two policies, but he did do exactly that. Take a listen.
I don't doubt, in terms of a media strategy, what Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison have done today is first class. But in terms of doing something about people drowning on the high seas, it's childish. You don't set a limit on capacity. The moment you do that, you give people smugglers a target to fill. And instead of it being a policy for 5 years, by putting that limit on capacity, it's effectively a policy for a fortnight.
Remember also that the plan for Nauru, the coalition's plan for Nauru, is just one plank of its policy. It also would introduce or reintroduce temporary protection visas, which the government is not doing, and also it still has that commitment to tow boats back, or turn boats around is the appropriate language, where safe to do so. Now, Tony Burke says that really this tent city in Nauru is an admission that they won't be able to turn boats around, that the situation has changed since the Howard years. Tony Abbott was asked by our reporter on the ground, Laura Jays, whether the government's message is stronger. This was Tony Abbott's response.
We've got almost 50,000 illegal arrivals by boat, almost 800 boats, tragically more than 1,000 drownings at sea, $10 billion plus in border protection blowouts, and you're saying that their policy is serious. Come on, Laura. Come on. Look at Mr Rudd's record. Look, this is a guy who is great at promising. He's hopeless at delivering, absolutely hopeless at delivering. And please, Laura, you can't let this Prime Minister get away with this kind of posturing. Judge him by his actions.
So a few similarities, but some key differences as well in the two policies.
David, yesterday we were talking about supplies going to Manus Island. Has there been any indication on when the first asylum seekers will go?
No firm indication from the Immigration Minister today. He again reiterated that 2 Fridays ago, when this plan was announced, the government made it clear that it would take 2 weeks or so to undergo the essential health checks before the asylum seekers could be moved to Manus Island. That 2 weeks is up this coming Friday, but Tony Burke said that he didn't want to put a deadline on this, so wouldn't say either way whether indeed those asylum seekers would be definitely going to Manus Island by the end of this week.
Now, also that news conference that we saw with Tony Abbott, he was also heckled whilst facing the media.
Yeah, this is pretty inevitable, you'd have to say, in an election campaign. Although we're not in an official election campaign, really you'd have to say that both leaders are very much on the ground campaigning every day, often in different cities. And this is the type of thing that you do see, as I say, in those election campaigns. The man was wearing a sandwich board, confronted Mr Abbott as he finished up his news conference. Let's play you some of that.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Mr Abbott. Mr Abbott. Mr Abbott, turn round. Mr Abbott, face the question, Mr Abbott. Don't walk away like you always do, Mr Abbott. Why don't you face the question, Mr Abbott?
As you can see there, Tony Abbott pretty much ignored this protester and continued to walk away. The man had a grievance about his father, who had died in the war, and was apportioning some blame on the coalition.
David Lipson in Canberra, thank you. And we'll